Florida man does weather. We are back with a new forecast. Looks like the next few days are going to be dry line days. We've got a slight risk out for tomorrow, little 2% area for tornadoes, 15% wind, 15% hail, and the slight risk is encompassing that yellow area. Your marginal out around that, and we've got another little sneaky marginal over in North Carolina, mainly for just hail and wind. And then day three, more of the same. I anticipate this will either expand or contract or disappear entirely, as this is a weak forcing scenario for the next 2 days. And
Hmm.
then if we go even further, it's predictability too low all the way through, I believe, day 8.
Yep.
And the reason for that is timing differences between the models are still a little bit too high to be able to know what's going on too far in advance right now. So let's get into it. Pull the 500 millibar wins. So this is from the 18Z GFS run today, Monday the 21st. Advance this out to Tuesday because there's nothing going on there today. We've just got this broad westerly flow, and inevitably this will lead to dry line setups. So you have just enough deep layer shear for supercells, but literally nothing in the low levels is doing anything for you. So one of the soundings I pulled from Southwest Texas demonstrates it perfectly. So everything in red is 0 to 3 kilometer winds. Everything in green is 3 to 6. Yellow is 6 to, I believe, about 8. It's either 6 to 8 or 6 to 12, and then the blue is everything basically in the jet
Above
stream.
in the non-functional atmosphere.
Yeah, so you have plenty of deep layer shear for supercells to produce hail, but with these dry line events, all it takes is one outflow boundary to get something going. So we can't be entirely too specific with our risk areas right now, just because we can't really tell you in advance of an entire day where a potential outflow boundary is going to go. Um, but what we can pinpoint is areas where storms are at least likely to go and have the best potential. So
Hmm.
this is 0Z, 8 p.m. Eastern time, 7 p.m. Central. Storms are likely going to fire probably around 5, 6, or 7 p.m. Central time over Texas. You've just got this remnant cold front from the last system that's kind of just draped across there. And then it gets real diffuse out here, which is allowing moisture to return back to the central plains. I'll pull up your moisture actually. And this is one of the reasons why that 2% tornado risk is located where it is. So the HRRR and the GFS are both in pretty decent agreement on a little plume of higher moisture over that region of Texas. So you've got your dry line demarcated around this area, and then it just kind of has a little bulge into there. There
Hmm.
might be some cyclogenesis that tries to occur out in the Kansas, Colorado area. Actually, it is indicated right
Yeah,
in
it's
there.
trying to form right there. Yeah, it's not
So we'll
closed.
see. Yeah, nothing flows. Wouldn't really augment much of a low level response. So you've just got this broad forcing day. This is where your moisture is most likely to pool. Anything up in this region is just going to be a high based hail threat, definitely a wind threat as well with these mixing ratios you're going to see. You got a strong inverted V profile. So anything that forms over here, you've got a good amount of instability within your hail growth region. But all this drying, especially with this high of a temperature dew point spread, almost 30 degrees exactly on at least this run of the model, anything that falls is going to have a pretty significant amount of precip evaporating, and that is just going to help amplify whatever wind gusts you get down at the surface. But down in this moisture plume, we have some fun stuff going on. So you still have ample moisture. The only issue is going to be this warm air inversion. So if we can get temperatures into the 80s down here, which I think is fairly likely, I don't think there should be really any clouds. If anything, it would be low clouds just from moisture coming up and getting stuck there. Um, we should get some pretty sizable storms down there. And then basically whatever happens, whatever storm goes up first and essentially gusts out first, that could put
Hmm.
out an outflow
Yep.
boundary, runs into a new storm, specifically if it runs into the south side, if it goes into the inflow region of a separate supercell, that can augment a tornado threat. That'll help to really boost the low level shear in a very small area. And we actually saw this last year on a pretty similar setup. I believe it was the Fort Stockton, Texas tornado. You had a left split supercell down to the south, and then this Fort Stockton cell was to the north. Outflow boundary started coming up. And then as that happened, this one started having an accelerated inflow because just the area for that inflow to go through was much smaller. So it'll speed up. And you slowly saw the RFD kick out, meet the boundary, and then you had this tornado just ride right along that boundary as it basically got pulled into that storm. And you can have these basically one and done events, or it can really latch on to the outflow boundary and be a cyclic tornado producer. I believe 2023 that also happened with the Morton, Texas tornado. That was a really, really big one. A lot of good footage out there on YouTube of that one. That was a pretty stunning tornado as well. Any input? What do you
Yeah, I was
think?
going to say, Caleb, the thing that you got to be careful with setups like this is the unpredictability of that dry line. Because as you could see, I was trying to mark with the little orange arrow and then it got stuck on the screen and it's currently still stuck on the screen. That little
Here,
tongue of
I'll zoom it in
moisture,
for you real quick too.
yeah, if you could bring it in on Texas for me, that's something I want to point out. So right here where you've got the reverse L shape on where the Texas Panhandle is. Um, when you've got that plume of 61 to 63 Fahrenheit dew points pushing up into West Texas right there. Um, that right there where it meets the dry line, as you can notice, there's little bulges and little kinks forming along the dry line there. And like you said, there's going to be the HRRR is suggesting right there at the crook of the panhandle that there's going to be a cell that fires.
Oh, you mean up here?
Initially, nope, just a little bit south of that. So if you bring it down, um, yep, just above that blue plume. The
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
right there, right about there. Now, initially, I thought that might be the center of action, but when you think about it, when that first cell fires, like you said, especially if it becomes a predominantly gust threat, and that storm there kicks out an outflow boundary more to the northeast, what I'm thinking personally is that cell may not be the one that you have to fear, but rather any cells that form to the northeast or east of that as that boundary kicks out and away from that decaying cell. Like you said, you're going to get a localized area of accelerated shear, and there's going to be ample moisture there. That's when you're going to run into an issue with something like, one of these monster tornadoes that everybody references on these isolated setups where you get one major cell, two major cells that form in the entire state. But when they do, they end up being these tornadoes that we talk about for decades. I know it's cliche and um, people reference it probably way too much, but I mean, El Reno, was a lone cell that was anchored on a dry line. You had an outflow boundary from prior cells. Like you said, it became an area of hyper localized shear, and the storm had no competition and it took off. We're not even remotely suggesting that something of that magnitude will happen tomorrow. Um, you can almost say with certainty that you won't see something that extreme. But that just is an example of the unpredictability of a dry line setup. Uh, you could get nothing. You could get a monster tornado. You could get cantaloupe sized hail. Like there's so much unpredictability whenever you've got lone cells with limited competition on a dry line. It's all going to boil down to hour by hour analysis tomorrow, what those outflow boundaries from prior cells are going to do, uh, that kind of thing. Like you said, there's going to be a cap. How warm can we get it? Is there going to be clouds in the way? Uh, how much surface heating you're going to get. All of those factors are going to play into where these cells form. And we did uh, a video a few days ago talking about the potential uh, north of Texas, and nothing
Oh,
fired.
that Iowa.
Yeah, nothing fired, and then it just goes to show you can have the ingredients, and if the first round of cells does not fire, then you're not going to get anything. But then if one does fire, you better buckle up because it could be a big one. And that's kind of why we wanted to focus on doing a video today targeting these dry line situations, because uh, the ceiling is very high in a dry line environment, and they're still a topic of study, and they can be sometimes very unpredictable. Models like even the HRRR, which is, the latest and greatest, you can see the difference between the 11Z run and the 12Z run. They look completely different because, there'll be an alpha boundary on one run that changes the story, and then the next model run, there's a different outflow boundary, and it's changing the dynamic again.
So I moved it on to Wednesday as well because it's literally a rinse and repeat for the next 2 days.
Yeah,
So everything we said today
similar setup.
applies to Wednesday, and it's going to be likely that same area where moisture will pool and continue to just stick around long term. So let me just advance the moisture as well, just to ensure that I'm correct on that. And yeah, so Southwest Texas looks to be the target. Ignore all this moisture over here. There's nothing that's going to happen with this
Mm-mm.
tomorrow in this entire area. All of your forcing is going to be very localized along this area where you see this bulge into here. There could be a little bit of storms going, and then another bulge up this way. That's another favorite area. And then across this region, I don't think you'll get anything really
Mm-mm.
significant to pop off.
It's going to be a very
There's a
hyper localized event.
chance, but I think it's underplaying the amount of capping right now
Yeah.
because the drought over the southwestern U.S. is just extensive. So we'll bump this over to Thursday even to get some timing on when the actual parent trough is going to finally kick out over the U.S. So we're now at Thursday. There's probably going to be another severe weather risk, likely around the same areas, somewhere in this big region over here. But Friday, and it finally kicks. So Friday, Saturday, you'll probably see some attempts at cyclogenesis. We'll definitely have to watch for short waves. They usually like to kick out ahead somewhere in this area. But this is a pretty good trough depiction for severe weather, especially as we head into Sunday and Monday. This is going to be where we start to look everywhere along here. This is guaranteed cyclogenesis somewhere in this region, maybe even multiple rounds of cyclogenesis. And you're just going to get more of the same that we had last week. This is the next sequence. This is the May pattern that we all know and are familiar with. But just for fun, this is next Tuesday. Yeah, so this is definitely flow associated with a cyclone at this point. We're
Hmm.
behind a dry line, so you're not getting as good of a picture of the environment. But just on the length of this photograph curvature, this is now associated with a surface low. So that would continue to progress east and northeast. And then it just kind of flattens out because we got this big dominant ridge over here that's just not going to go away. So if you ever want to know, is it going to rain in Florida? No.
Now,
Never. You're going to get nothing until the end of May, maybe even into June. It could be another year where it's literally a dry June. It's been, I think we had what, like half an inch of rain this month?
that'd be generous, and that came off of that weird dryline event that we had that one night.
Yeah, yeah. So here in Florida, I expect nothing. And then just for goofs, let's see what the GFS wonks out to do. We've been having issues with the GFS, to say the least, since some recent changes have been made to what data gets fed in. So, okay, at least it's not doing it now. But this morning's GFS run, either the 6Z or the 12Z, by the end of the run, it showed like a winter time trough cutting all the way into Florida. Um, if you see any of that floating around anywhere, which I doubt you will, but some other weather pages like to sensationalize things.
Yep.
That's not happening. It's
A
May.
rule of thumb, a rule of thumb. Um, and this is especially going to be a critical piece of information going ahead until we can get full rounds of sounding coming across through all of our weather stations again across the country. Because, the less data that comes in from fewer balloon launches, the bigger your chance of error. Um, don't take anything from the models beyond 120 hours. Even at 120 right now at this point, you're kind of pushing it. Me personally, I'm not taking too much stock in anything that is outside of 3 days, just trying to play it safe. But yeah, anything beyond 120 hours, don't take it. If people are sharing videos, screenshots, model runs, trying to hype fear. Oh, we've got a May tropical storm in the Gulf. All this stuff that's about to fire up again. Um, Listen, look at that timestamp. That timestamp is showing greater than 120 hours. Throw it out the window. Call them out on it. It's all fear mongering and hype. GFS is what used to be notorious for spawning phantom storms. It was getting better. And then we've noticed it's starting to hint this year that it's bringing the phantom storms back. So you're going to get a lot of these people that create these little crackpot YouTube channels just saying the next category 5 to hit the next Hurricane Andrew, end of July, beginning of August is here. Don't listen to it. Don't buy it. Don't take it. It's all hype. It's all fear. They don't know what they're talking about. Anything beyond 120, throw it out the window. The models are on low power mode, and with the lower amounts of data, even with it being maybe an insignificant amount of error being introduced, there's still an amount of error being introduced. And the further you go past 120, those little error margins are getting wider and wider and wider. So you go towards our 360 into the run, little errors at 0 hour become errors about this big at 360, 364. So anything beyond 120, if you see it, you hear it, don't take it, don't believe it, don't listen to it. Right now, anything beyond 120 is solely atmospheric patterns. We won't know what's going on until we get there.
All right, so here's something interesting. I pulled the 0Z HRRR
Mm-hmm.
just out of curiosity. So as we go through the day, there's that moisture plume. This is 7 a.m. in the morning for you guys out in Texas. Uh, you've got those 60-degree dew points. They mix out a little bit. Watch this,
There's a
possibly a
little
little mesolo being indicated.
there's a little
And
plume of
then
higher
that's,
dews in the middle.
yeah, that's supercell. That's sampling a supercell right there.
Yep.
So that's what I mean. These localized areas, the HRRR is already picking up on some of it. Now, take
Very,
this with a
very
grain of
high.
salt because um, it's a weird pattern to read.
Yeah.
So, this could vary by like 50 miles or, not even be there at all
Yeah.
because the moisture mixes out too much. But like I said, outflow boundary augmenting more shear. You've got way more low level shear now. And this would introduce at least some of a tornado threat. But this is showing your omega. So we're sampling an updraft right here.
Yeah, very high
And
omega
as you can see,
values
it's
indicated
strongest in the
uptrend.
mid levels. So this would be definitely a hail producer. You can see some of
Oh
these
yeah.
analogs are showing golf balls, one showing baseball sized hail, but something to watch out for. And then
So out of
in
curiosity,
my
what does Blar progress that supercell into?
know
To
what?
progress the environment a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just on dew points,
Yeah, I'm just curious to see what the plume. So it's almost like
dryline retreats overnight a little bit and then
so I'm
probably comes right back.
curious to see also how these cells interact as that dry line retreats.
Hmm.
We've had southwestward moving tornadoes in western Texas on a retreating dry line before, so I'll be curious to see how that dry line interacts tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yep.
Man, I wish we had access to radar
Now,
in
now
Mexico
does that
because
does
these are some monsters. Because you got
oh yeah.
orographic lifting right here.
Oh yeah.
That would be a treat to see. So it moves them off the boundary.
So
You
that
get some
storm
high
does
base.
move to the southeast. I find that interesting. That supercell, it becomes a right mover and goes to the southeast.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that. That'll be interesting.
That one right there with the deviant motion, that one right there, particularly that one that treks towards the center of the state, depending on where that, if that actually ends up initializing, that could be interesting.
Then it even expands it into a
A
convective
bow,
system.
yeah, almost like a weak MCS, and then pushes it
Yeah.
all the way to the coast. Okay,
So that could be fun. That could be quite interesting to see. And then Wednesday just kind of looks like an air mass thunderstorm day, but it's a Texas air mass. So tons of instability. Well, not really right here, but this is sampling a storm at this point. So let me back it up just a little. Not there, around here. Still showing skinny cape. So this is in cloud cover.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. What if I move it to where no storms are there? That's more like it.
Yeah.
So that's still same thing. Good deep layer shear. It's going to be mesoscale boundaries, augmenting something out of nothing, basically.
Yep.
Expect hail, possibly some damaging winds. Uh, but yeah, Wednesday for right now, to me, doesn't look too bad. Just looks like a general thunderstorm risk, other than over here where the dry line forcing is a bit better. But who knows? Um, that if that cell manifests like the HRRR thinks it could, right mover, and then turns into a big mesoscale system, that could leave an outflow boundary here.
Yeah.
We could have basically like a small warm front along this area. We don't know yet. We'll have to see how it plays out. So I would expect us to be posting updates on our Facebook page and on the YouTube as well, because it's going to be kind of an hour by hour, see what's going on type of day. A lot of quick forecasts are going to be made tomorrow. Um, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see. And just for fun, this is a new model. This is similar to the HRRR. Let's see, where's 18? That should have it all the way out. Yeah. Let's see. This is basically an improvement of the FV3, and I'm not the biggest fan of the FV3 because it has a tendency to turn every storm into a supercell, kind of no matter what the environment looks like. So I don't really use it as much. So it's pinpointing those same area that HRRR is doing. So that's curious. Then you just got a bunch of air mass thunderstorms firing off. I kind of question that as well. But we do have that remnant cold front out there. So let's see how that
And
progresses.
they definitely have it as a right mover with a yeah. But then it does that weird thing up there.
Yeah, that's almost a. mesovortex type of
Yeah.
thing, little QLCS.
But
All right.
I do find it interesting if you notice right after it originates in the Texas Panhandle and keeps going to the east, it they pick up an abrupt sharp shift and it turns right and heads to the southwest, so it's or southeast, so it's very interesting.
And
Very
then
interesting.
same spot on day two.
Yeah.
And then this one actually goes out all the way to 84 hours. So just for funds. All right, that's cool. So it's still dry line activity and then just whatever happens up here, outflow boundaries that are left over could spark off new convection because you've got the same westerly flow. It's just harder to predict the
Yeah.
exact point where storms are going to form up there because like nothing's concrete. Down here, we know where the dry line's going to set up. We know it's going to be quite a sharp boundary, and we know that there's going to be bulges in it. At least two models now have indicated clear dryline bulges. We got one here, and then one was back here, but it kind of retreated as the day went on. So let's just finish out the run. And they disappear into thin air. Cool. So, anything else to add to the long term?
No, I think that's about it for now. Our main focus the next couple of days is just gonna be looking at that dry line. It's slow weather elsewhere. Texas is where the show's gonna be for the majority of the rest of the week. So yeah, we'll keep you guys posted. We'll do some spot updates. Expect a lot of little radar grabs as well. We love doing those, so we'll be sending you guys a bunch of those on YouTube as shorts. So check those out, learn. Um, you know, our goal with those is to show you the different tools that the radar offers and how to read and recognize so that you can take the radar and you can read and learn things on your own as well. So yeah, we'll continue to keep doing that, keep getting you guys some exposure to the different features that offers, and we'll be watching some dry lines over the next couple of days.
Yes, sir.
All right.